So, for those who have attended the KlasifiKon session yesterday, I made a similar presentation, though I will make it a little bit different and try to allocate some time on doing a hands-on embedded coding tool demonstration. I will skip this slide because it basically lists all the tools, but many of them have been already presented in this session, so there is no need to go over this. ICD API is a very important component for us, and this in this particular talk, what I will focus is how other software can make use of ICD 11 and the tools that we have developed for it. So we have tools, you can access them, but how can you integrate these tools within the tools that you are developing? And for that, ICD API is a very important component. It's a HTTP-based REST API, so it can be used from any programming language or platform. It is multilingual, so you have seen the translation platform. So ICD translated using that platform is released, and the API is automatically available together with the releases. Currently, 2023 version has 7 languages, and there are 20 more languages which are being translated. The API provides you both foundation and linearization. As I have mentioned, the foundation and linearization and their differences. You can get access to both of them from the API, and you can get access to all different releases that we have made since 2018. The API has a semantic structure based on JSON-LD, which is a W3 standard, and the schema uses some components from SCOS and some additional components specific to the domain of ICD. One very important aspect of the API is searching. So it allows it provides a good search functionality which goes over the full foundation and the linearization and give you results. Essentially, you have seen demonstrations of the coding tool this morning. The coding tool itself is fully making use of the ICD API that's behind it. So the search that we provide in the API is basically gives powering the coding tool, and it has even more functionality than what you see in the coding tool. It supports post coordination, that is adding more content to the categories or learning more about them, like which entities can be extended with which XCs and what are the additional value set and things like that, or are all accessible from this API. We have open API support, which is important for software developers. It gives the ideal documentation for an API, so you can actually, without writing one line of code, you can explore the API and what it can do using this technology. It may even help you in writing some client code in the preferred programming language of yours. We host the API in Microsoft Cloud Azure. It's very scalable and performant. So we never had any downtime in the last 3 months, and the performance is very high. So we respond in here the average response time is 24 microseconds, which is very, very good for an API like this. However, even though we have this very powerful and strong cloud infrastructure, sometimes it's necessary to deploy it locally. This might be due to lack of reliable internet connection, or it might be due to some other reasons where you want to host everything locally without any internet access or things like that. So it's also possible to deploy our API locally using either Docker or directly as a Windows or a Linux service. So these are very easy to install and configure within your systems. Now, I will talk about the embedded classification tools, which is okay. There is a question which is asking it requires registration, and would it be best to register account on institution level? I would say yes, if it will be an institutional software that you are going to consume the API with, you may register as an institution. And this, of course, we need this registration in order to provide the proper authentication when using the API. But of course, the tool, just like any other tools that we provide, are free to use. But a registration is required to use the ICD API from our cloud hosting. However, if you choose to deploy it locally, there is no requirement for registration for your own versions. So both are possible. And yes, you may register with using your institution as the account holder. Now, I will talk a little bit about the embedded classification tool, which is very important. You have seen the coding tool and how powerful it is when it comes to converting medical phrases into ICD codes and how helpful that is. And what we did here with the embedded classification tools is we provide a mechanism to include coding tool within your software. So at the back end, it uses the ICD API, but it provides the coding tool user interface into your applications that you can configure in the way you want. This is also multilingual, so any language that is supported by our API, which is any language that is that ICD is translated in, you may use the embedded classification tools for. So here is the overall structure, how we structured these layers on top of layers in terms of how you configure the actual software. So at the bottom we have the ICD API that is the core system which provides information about the classification. Your software might directly consume the ICD API. So that is totally possible. And then we have the embedded classification tools which provide the coding tool and browser functionality. So you may write software which actually uses the embedded classification tools. Therefore, you kind of have the embedded have the coding tool within your software. And actually our ICD-11 browser and ICD-11 coding tool are developed exactly in the same manner. They are just using embedded classification tools system, and they are using the same structure. So your software can be in a similar fashion within your health information system, electronic records software, or I don't know, death certificate systems. You may integrate the coding tool to benefit from this technology. Here, I will make a small demonstration. I know we are a little bit stressed for time, therefore I will try to be quick. Basically, I will start with a simple HTML file and add ICD-11 coding tool functionality to it. So here I'm opening an HTML on the right-hand side and the source code of it on the left-hand side. So here we see a very simple page, and you see on the left how it is in HTML. So extremely simple. So there is an input tag. So whenever you see a form like this, it's an input tag in HTML. So regardless of what technology, what software tool it does, when it comes into your browser, it's in HTML and it has these things. So what we are going to do is we want to convert this diagnosis field into a coding tool. And the demonstration here, the detail is not important. What is important is to kind of illustrate how easy it is And this can be your actual software, which has lots of linkages to databases and things like that. The bottom line, there is a field where you enter the diagnosis or multiple of them, and you can actually convert them into a coding tool. And here, I will, in order not to type these things on, I will just copy some of this content and will explain what these things are to gain some time. So here I add a couple of linkages. One is there's a style sheet so that the coding tool that we show looks like the coding tool that we have online. There is a JavaScript, which actually is the kind of the engine which communicates with the API, gets the information, shows it in the relevant places. So that's, you just provide a link to that. And then there is, we need to tell where the API is. Since these embedded tool uses the ICD API, you need to tell where it is. And here we just say it's this one. In this particular case, we are using a developer test version of the API, which you can use while developing software. This one doesn't require authentication or registration, but we don't recommend it to be used in production, but you can use it during the software development. And I will use it in this session. And then after adding these components, we just call the configuration with this setting. We basically say that embedded coding tool use these settings, and the code is here. So after this, we need to tell which input field in the form will become a coding tool. And that one is done by essentially getting this information here. And then I just add this to here. And then we also need to tell where to put the output. So you may actually put the coding tool in any place you want in the on the page. So I will be just putting it here at the bottom of the page. So with this update, if I just refresh the page and then type something like cholera, is you see this simple application now has direct linkage to the coding tool. Now, from this point onwards, you can, there are some simple configurations that you can make it, for example, work in Czech. Now that we have pre-release and it also contains API, it's possible to use this one in your language. One could also configure it in different ways in addition to the to changing the language, and all of them are in very detailed explained in our ICD API page and its documentation. So this is the overall, and the main message here, not the detail I'm showing on the left, but the main message is when you have a web-based software, it's very easy to integrate a coding tool to it. You don't even need to deal with the ICD API calls and responses and what to call and what to do. It is all done for you, and then it's a very fast way of integrating ICD-11 into your software. You can of course, always go back and use the API as that's the core, and you may maybe use both of them. In some parts of your software, you use embedded classification tools for the coding tool integration, and for some others, when you need to get more information about the classification, you may use the API as it is as well. So there are multiple ways of doing it. So this is what I wanted to present this morning. And if you have any questions, I'm ready to respond.
You select a code and you want to post coordinate. Where is all that going to be stored?
With the embedded, it's a very good question. With the embedded classification tool, it's a way to help a software developer. So what we do is when the user clicks on this button, we give all the information about this code into into a call here. So they decide what to do with that callback. So we provide them what was the search text, what was clicked on, what's the code of the clicked entity, what's the URI, if it's a more detailed. So all that information is sent to the software as a package, and then they decide if they want to save it in a database, they arrange that part from their end, or simply they may just get the code here and put the code directly to here in a one-line code, and then from this form they may already have a way to save it in their software, so they don't need to do additional work. So there are, but bottom line is we provide the information about the selected entity, and it's responsibility of the developer to decide how to kind of integrate it into their software.
Which is the part that's a bit more complicated with 11 because of the string concepts rather than being maximum 4 or 5 digits. You can have to think about how they're going to handle that. And
That's true. I would think in 2023, the number of digits in saving a textual field, the size is relevant. Managing it is relevant, but that will be done on the back end. So saving it somewhere, it doesn't matter if it is 4 or 7 or 8.
saving it.
But once you save it, you need to know what that means, and that one the API helps you. For example, if you want to decipher a long code string and want to understand what it all means, there are API endpoints that you can call. It will tell you this is this code, and there is a laterality, there is an anatomy, and there is this histopathology, and these are the values for it. So there are API also kind of helps you in deciphering long codes, and by using that, you may also kind of restructure the collected data in the way you want if you need to do that.